Want to show support for your Philly teams? Check out PhillyGoat.com. They have all your needs covered, whether it's Sixers, Flyers, Eagles, Phillies, Union, Philly boxing, Philly culture, Philly pride. There's something for you. They have tees, hoodies, hats, any color, any size you want, including kids. Go to PhillyGoat.com and use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. That's PhillyGoat.com. Be sure your shirt has the authentic goat on the sleeve and use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. That's PhillyGoat.com. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the same Philly Sports History for December 9th, 2023. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Saturday edition of the podcast. A foggy morning here in the area. But let's start with speaking of weather, let's start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked what was the most memorable weather-related game for the Eagles, the 48 NFL Championship, the Fog Bowl, the Pickle Juice game, or the Snow Bowl. And it was the Snow Bowl just beating, I should say, the Fog Bowl, 55% of the vote. Most people said that voted, they were either at that game or it was fun watching on TV. And you see snow games a lot, but not in that type of environment. Is not as often. The Fog Bowl was unique, and that was my first foray into disappointment as an Eagles fan. But no argument from there. I think Snow Bowl, since they won, thank you again to everyone who participated. And stay tuned for later in this episode for today's question of the day. We're continuing our food and gift drive. Thank you to everyone who donated the gift cards to the Matty Ann Dixon Community Cupboard. Truly, truly appreciate that. We're turning our focus now strictly to the food drive. And I will be going on Friday morning with the kids to make the drop off the donation. So if you want, or it's easier for you to Amazon me your donation, hit me up offline and do that. I will be reposting the list on my social media, so that way you know all of the items that they are in need of. But again, let's focus and get that done this week. This is a great organization, so let's really focus on helping those in need in our community. If you're following at home with the reverse advent calendar, today's item of the day is hot chocolate. Typically, I think they're looking for like a Swiss Miss mix, or something like that. So let's go get them some hot chocolate so the folks can enjoy a nice cup of hot chocolate on a warm or a cold day to warm up. For our 25 days of kindness today, we mentioned this a little bit. I did on Tuesday. I probably should have swapped them a little bit, but thank veterans, especially on the Army-Navy game. If you know somebody who served, or you are somebody who served, thank you. But let's just go thank our veterans, because, again, I say this a lot, but because of their service and their dedication and their hard work, I'm able to sit here and just talk trash and talk nonsense about Philly sports. So go thank a vet today. And if you are a vet or have a vet in your family, tell them I said thank you. All right, good win for the Sixers, 125-114 over the Hawks. They pulled away late in this game. They kind of Joe was being Joe. And like I said yesterday, I don't know if it's because he finally won the MVP and that stress is just off of him. He doesn't have that pressure, but he just seems more comfortable and more dominant this year. Could be Doc Rivers not being there. I don't know, but he just looks different. He had 38, and they did pull away in the fourth quarter when they needed to, which I liked. Maxey wasn't good most of the game, but he had a few big shots. And, I mean, even when he's like one of those players now, and I think we have, excuse me, I think we found and have a bona fide superstar in Tyrese Maxey. He had 30. Joe had an injury late. It looked like somebody fell into his knee, but they tested it out, and the strength-wise, he was there. So it might just be a little sore. Worth monitoring, but he came back in and still was dominant. But good win for them. And again, like, I don't know what it is. Maybe like it's either Doc Rivers, the fact he's not pressing to win the MVP. I don't know. He just, to me, looks very, very comfortable, more comfortable than I've seen him. And just Yeah, it could be Nick Nurse's. I just don't know. It could be a combination of everything. But good win for them, 125-114 over the Hawks. Flyers are in action out in Denver tonight against Colorado. I did read something, I believe it was on The Athletic, and it was an interesting take that while it's fun that they're winning, we need to temper the expectations because obviously they're probably not going to make a run in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And then it did question whether or not they're stifling their rebuild by winning because they're going to be in that no man's land where, or like I used to call it with the Sixers, the NBA purgatory. They're going to be in NHL purgatory. However, I think with the NHL more so than any of the other sports, if you get into the playoffs, you have a decent shot. Yes, like the 8th seed doesn't always go, or 7th seed doesn't always win, but it happens way more often in the NHL than it does in any of the other sports. I mean, the Flyers the year in 2010 when they went to the Stanley Cup were the 7th seed. So, but it was an interesting thing. Like, are they setting back their rebuild? But I mean, I think it's good to build a winning culture, and I mean, if that you're escalating. I mean, you have Mishkov who hopefully can get out of that contract over in Russia, but I mean, he's a bona fide superstar as well. So I don't know. Maybe it's better to have the winning culture. We saw and heard all of the stories about the process era with the Sixers, how there's just the stench of losing in the building. So it's one of those things it's worth monitoring, but it's been fun, more so than anything. So we'll see where that goes. But they're in action tonight against the Avalanche. All right, Eagles news. Before we get into any of the game stuff, if you haven't seen it, the Eagles posted on their social media. But when it was announced that Lane was the finalist for the Walter Payton Man of the Year. It was announced in the offensive line meeting. Video is pretty cool. Jason Kelce gave a nice little speech, so it's a really good moment. So if you can, and I mean, obviously we know all that Lane's been through since he's been here, so it was a very emotional kind of touching thing. So go check that out. But it was pretty cool how they did the announcement for him. Injury news. No injury designations for tomorrow night's game. Dallas Goedert is playing. Looks like Zach Cunningham is playing. Fletcher Cox is playing. Julio Jones was limited in practice due to a hamstring. Shocking. But all intents and purposes, it looks like he's going to play. I also think Dallas is pretty healthy as well. So, I mean, I think it's going to come down to who's the better team. And, I mean, obviously who executes better. But Shaq Leonard seems like he's likely to start. He's going to wear number 53. I'm starting to get a feel on where this game is going to go, and we'll have more on that tomorrow. But barring anything crazy, it looks like both teams are going to be relatively healthy, or at least as healthy as you can be for Week 14. So I'll have the picks and where we're going to go for our bet tomorrow. But everybody's healthy, which is good. So Eagles Cowboys tomorrow. It's a great day today or tomorrow, whenever you can. Check out the Clashing Conferences podcast. My boys over there are doing a great job. Very good episode. They gave Greg the business because of the 49ers beatdown, and rightfully so. I mean, the Eagles got punched in the mouth multiple times. So we'll see how they respond. But go check out my boys with the Clashing Conferences podcast wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. All right, we're going back to hockey, and on this day, back in 1999, the Flyers won 4-2 over the Maple Leafs at what was known then, my favorite name for this building, the FU Center, First Union Center. But in that 4-2 win over the Maple Leafs, Eric Lindros scored 2 goals in the first, including a power play. Leclerc added another one in the second, and then Eric Lindros gave the Flyers the insurance goal they needed in the third period, counting for his 11th and final regular season hat trick while with the Flyers. Unfortunately, it was all downhill from there. On December 27th, he suffered his second concussion of his career, and he would suffer 5 more by the time May 26, 2000 rolled around. So think about that. His second concussion happened on December 27th, And by Memorial Day, basically, he had suffered 5 more concussions. In that time, he lost his captaincy. He was stripped of being the captain. I can't say that word. The Flyers blew the 3-1 lead in the Eastern Conference Final. It just was a bad time for the Flyers. I mean, that whole Eric Lindros versus Bobby Clark fiasco where they literally almost killed him. It was bad. Well, more on the Eric Lindros stuff. That was this week's the latest episode of Back to the Future. We talked about Eric Lindros and really went into more detail of just how dominant he was and then how quickly it fell apart. So go check that out. Back to the Future with a PH wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. But on this day back in 1999, it was the Flyers beating the Maple Leafs 4-2 at the good old FU Center. Eric Lindros having the hat trick, his final regular season and really his final hat trick as a Flyer. He would have 11 in the regular season, and unfortunately it all came crashing down from there. But again, go check out the latest Back to the Future for more detail on Eric Lindros. Today's Philly Sports Advent Calendar gift of the day. We open up the door, and this is where if I had a Baba Booey or a Fred Norris, you'd hear the creaking noise. But it is the L Train, Lionel Simmons, small forward from the LaSalle Explorers. The L Train led South Philly High to the Philly Public League title in 1986. The Public League was pretty stacked during that mid to late 80s period. You had Hank Gathers and Bo Kimball, and Doug Overton. Even Hank Gathers' brother was good, Pooh Richardson. The Philly Public League at the time was very, very just stacked. After high school, Lionel Simmons went to LaSalle, where he just dominated. He was the National Player of the Year in 1990. He was All-American that year. He was a second-team All-American in 89, third-team in 88. But 1990 was that year that he won Player of the Year. He was a 3-time Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference Player of the Year. His number 22 is retired by the Explorers. And this is where it gets good and just how good Lionel Simmons was. He's still the number 5 all-time leading scorer in NCAA history, behind Pistol Pete, Antoine Davis, Freeman Williams, and Chris Clemens. He was the first player to score 3,000 points and have 1,100 rebounds. He has the NCAA record still of most consecutive double-digit scoring games with 115. He led LaSalle to 3 straight NCAA tournament appearances. He was a 3-time Big Five MVP, 4-time All Big Five. He led LaSalle while he was there, and this is just, you kind of know the state of Temple, all the Philly schools minus Nova. He led LaSalle to a 131 record in his 4 years there, which is just phenomenal. He averaged 24.5 points a game and almost 11 rebounds a game. Parlayed that into being the 7th overall pick in the 1990 draft by the Sacramento Kings. Made the all-rookie team in the NBA in 1991. He was the runner-up to another one of our Philly athletes that we've talked about on this podcast. Not in a good way, though, but runner-up for Rookie of the Year to Derek Coleman. Had a decent 7-year NBA career. First few years, he was solid. He was averaging 17 points or so a game. And then injuries plagued him and forced him to retire in 1997 at age 28. But he's in the LaSalle LaSalle Athletic Hall of Fame, the Big Five Hall of Fame, the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. His number 22, like I said, is retired. Still number 5 on the all-time NCAA college men's basketball scoring list. And that is our gift to you today. The L Train, Lionel Simmons, one of the best to ever do it from the city of Philadelphia. One of the best college players ever to play in Philly. Excuse me. And it's a shame because he would have had a solid, I don't know if he'd ever been like an all-star caliber player, but he was a solid player if the injuries did not catch up with him. And it's really just a shame. But, I mean, just thinking back, though, too, of how stacked the Public League was during that time frame. Just all those guys went to the NBA or would have gone to the NBA. It's just insane. But Lionel Simmons may have been the best of the bunch, which leads me to today's question of the day. And I thought really long and hard about how to frame this question, only because if we go back to, I mean, you had like so many great players that participated. So I'm capping this at 40 years. So roughly we're going back to like mid 80s. And it is, in the last 40 years, who is the best player to come out of the Big Five? Is it Lionel Simmons? Is it Jameer Nelson, Kerry Kittles, or Temple's Mark Macon? And again, there was just such a big pool of Big Five players to choose from. If you go back, like Guy Rogers, and we talked about Paul Arizin a couple of days ago. Could have really opened it up. Howard Porter could have been in that conversation, but I wanted to really keep it more within the last 40 years. So from like 1983 till today, who's the best player to come out of the Big Five? Is it Lionel Simmons, Jameer Nelson, Kerry Kittles, or Mark Macon? Or am I leaving somebody out? And if I'm leaving someone out, let me know. Leave a comment. And this is where I wish I had the hotline set up. And it's coming, but I wish I had it set up because you could leave it on there. But I might have missed somebody. So let me know. Who is the best Big Five player in the last 40 years? Lionel Simmons, Jameer Nelson, Kerry Kittles, or Mark Macon? Let me know on my social media. Twitter, got to be careful there. Twitter and TikTok at Jimbo_Mont. On Instagram at Philly Jimbo. If you're friends with me on Facebook, I'll have it posted there. On Anchor, it is in the app. Send me text messages, whatever you need to do. Let me know who's the greatest Big Five player in the last 40 years. Is it the L Train, Jameer Nelson, Kerry Kittles, or Mark Macon? On this day, back in 1999, the Flyers beat the Maple Leafs 4-2. Eric Lindros with a hat trick, his last as a Flyer. We'll have more on the Eagles tomorrow, including our pick and our bet. Good win for the Sixers. Joe, hopefully that knee is okay, and it's just a little bit of knee soreness. But I do think Tyrese Maxey is a bona fide superstar. Good luck to the Flyers tonight in Colorado. We got double dips of basketball today. We're going to see Trains out in Strasburg, Santa. It's just a big packed day. Whatever you're doing, enjoy your Saturday. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.